Hey everyone, OmnicientWolf here, and I'm just doing a quick video on my audio setup using the Elgato Wavelength software. Someone asked me recently on a video how I had my audio set up because they had a similar microphone or the same microphone actually. So I'm just going to run through what I'm currently rocking and why I'm using it very quickly, hopefully. So here we go. So here we are in the Elgato Wavelength software. I'm using my Elgato Wave EX XLR microphone connected to the XLR interface. And these are the 6 filters that I have. I have the Refair plugin, which is a noise suppression style plugin, D-Gate, which is noise gate related, Elgato EQ, which is an equalizer, Elgato compressor, which is a compressor, Sweetvox, which is a de-esser. We'll get into that shortly. And last but not least, Loudmax, which is a limiter, essentially. Now, this is not intended to be a thorough look at plugins and how to get them and all that jazz, but 4 out of the 6 plugins that I do have here are essentially VSTs. So if you want to have a Google, I'm sure you'll find the information relevant to you. But the 4 plugins that I use that are VSTs are Refair, D-Gate, Sweetvox, and Loudmax. So starting with Refair. Refair is a noise suppression style plugin, and what it does is it creates a baseline value. You can see the red on the graph, which is the baseline value of background noise that I have going on when I am completely mute. So as you can see, there's sound happening in the background, whether that's static noise, whether it's my PC fans, that the microphone is picking up to an extent. And as a result, what I'd like to do with this graph and the red line is to make sure that anything underneath it does not actually get captured in the sound. So when I'm moving my voice right now and I'm using my voice, you can see how the yellow line is actually always staying underneath the gray line. And that's what you want it to do, essentially. So the way you would do this is make sure that the mode here is called subtract, set that up. And then as quiet as possible, while you're mute, you would want to click on this checkbox. I'm not going to do that right now because, well, I like my setup. I don't want to mess around with it. I mean, I could always fix it, but I'll keep it as is. And then you would uncheck it again while remaining mute, essentially. So that's essentially how you set that up. It's very nice. I like it because it creates this sort of noise suppression based on what you have going on while you're muted. And then anything else will be caught on stream, you know? So if you're someone that doesn't like the clicking and clacking of your keyboard being picked up, if it is being picked up, then you might want to go along the lines of a noise suppressor, like just a traditional noise suppressor, which you can activate in the Elgato Wavelength software by default. There's the NVIDIA one that's a noise removal, or just the Elgato noise removal. Either one of those will work for you. Or you can pick up another VST that has to do with noise suppression, and that would work as well. Once again, this is going to be quick and dirty, so apologies if I don't go through all the nitty-gritty of each plugin. The next is D-Gate. This one is very simple in the sense that anything under a certain value will not be picked up by the microphone. So right now I have it set to negative 48 decibels. So anything under negative 48 will just simply not be picked up. You have to play around with this and see, your normal voice. How does it influence the decibel range and what's being picked up and what's not being picked up? But for me, my voice, for the most part, will always be above negative 48. And any other background noise may not be picked up if it doesn't reach that negative 48 threshold. So, for example, my keyboard presses, if it may not be picked up by software because I have my output set to a certain range and the keyboard presses are not hitting that range, for example. Just another noise suppression style tool that you want to consider as part of your setup, setting up that gate to make sure that anything below that gate is not getting picked up as background noise, for example. Next, we have the Elgato equalizer, and this is built into Wavelength. Quite simply, what I've done is I've actually just taken the Elgato equalizer for the Wave DX as part of the Elgato marketplace and applied that. I didn't make any changes at all. I feel like it's really good out of the box, and that's what I'm leveraging as equalizer. Honestly, you could really get deep into the woods looking at different equalizer settings. I would just suggest looking at something that feels good to you, sounds good to you. And of course, you can always manually tweak these settings, but I found that the default Elgato DX equalizer available in the Elgato marketplace to work just fine for me. Next, we have the Elgato compressor. Now, the Elgato compressor is important. Any compressor is important. It's probably one of the most important things in any stream. Make sure you have a compressor on so that anytime you talk loud or anytime you talk low, whatever you say is still being distributed, I shouldn't say distributed, is being pushed out to the stream at a good volume. The last thing you want is to have your really loud noise be super, super loud and burst an eardrum. And as well, you don't want to have the opposite effect where, maybe you're whispering or talking really low and people can't hear you and they have to raise the volume and then you scream. And then, having that volume that goes up and down is super, super annoying. And definitely something you notice right away if someone has this set up or not. So definitely recommend setting it up. The Elgato compressor honestly is the easiest one. In my opinion, you can use a VST as well if you wanted to, but you just have to drag this to try to cut any peaks, essentially. I guess I could be more aggressive if I wanted to with this, but I like it where it is. You just want it to be sort of like at the top of the threshold. And there are other advanced settings here, but I honestly leave everything to default and it works fine for me. But you can definitely manually tweak this further, like set up your gain and all that jazz. Once again, this is not intended to be a detailed look at how each plugin works. I'm just giving you sort of like a high level overview of what it does and how I have it set up for me. Next, we have SweetFox, which is a de-esser. It does other things too, but this is the plugin that's intended for de-essing, if you will. And what that does is that it essentially reduces the harshness of your S's. So I had seen a YouTube video where someone suggested to just put this to 30 to 35% and call it a day. I've set mine to 25% just to be a little bit more on the cautious side. If you do increase it too far, I believe you will have more of a lisp sound. So just be careful with how much you activate that dial. Honestly, I think like 25% works really well to just reduce the harshness of your S without making that sort of lispy sound. So that's something you want to consider because S's can definitely be harsh to listen to. You don't have to have this plugin. Honestly, in my opinion, out of all the ones that I've shown so far, this is more of an optional one. And last but not least, we have Loud Max, which acts as a limiter. I'll be honest with you, this one I forget exactly how to set it up. I just remember setting it up once and forgetting about it, essentially. You could definitely find some YouTube videos, tutorials on this, but essentially the limiter is there for you to just avoid making sure that if you do, peak, that it gets cut at a certain point, which for me is -3, and essentially it will not go any louder than that. That is what the limiter is intended for. And that's a wrap. The one last thing worth mentioning here, if you made it to the end of the video, is that the order of your audio effects makes a huge, huge difference. So generally speaking, this is sort of like the order you want to see. You want to have any sort of noise suppression active, followed by the noise gate. Then you want to have your equalizer and your compressor. And then last but not least, your limiter, essentially. So more or less, that's the order you kind of want to see. Hopefully this has been helpful for any of you that have watched this video. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I am by no means an audio expert. I've seen countless videos on setting a lot of these plugins up and messing around with VSTs and all that jazz, which there's a ton of resources online, but I did want to make this video because someone did ask, hey, can you make a video on how you get your microphone to sound the way it does? And I was more than happy to oblige. Thanks again, OmnicientWolf.